Don't marry her, she is a scammer. The words came trembling from the lips of Grace, the maid who had served silently for years in the great mansion. Her voice was shaky, her eyes filled with fear, yet her warning carried the weight of truth. Michael, the young millionaire who had inherited both fortune and responsibility, froze when he heard her speak. The celebration of his engagement was hours away, and the last thing he expected was a poor servant interrupting with accusations about the woman he loved. Michael was admired everywhere he went. He was wealthy, respected in business, and yet humble enough to treat people kindly. He believed he had found the perfect partner in Samantha, a woman of beauty and elegance who had swept into his life like a dream. She carried herself with charm, her smile disarming, her words dripping with sweetness. To Michael, she was the missing piece in his life. To everyone else, she looked like the perfect match for a man of his stature. Everyone except Grace. Grace was not someone people noticed. She worked quietly, mopping floors, dusting shelves, serving meals, and fading into the background. But silence does not mean blindness. She had seen things others ignored. She had witnessed Samantha making strange phone calls late at night when she thought nobody was watching. She had heard laughter mixed with whispered promises spoken into the receiver of a hidden phone. She had seen Samantha's eyes, cold and calculating when Michael's back was turned, only to soften the moment he faced her. Grace gathered courage that day because she could not hold it any longer. She saw destruction approaching like a storm cloud, and her conscience would not allow her to stay silent. She stood before Michael, her hands trembling, and whispered those words, "Don't marry her, she is a scammer." Michael's face hardened. His trust in Samantha was absolute, and his pride would not let him believe a maid knew more about his fiancée than he did. His voice, usually calm, carried a sharpness Grace had never heard before. He accused her of jealousy, of bitterness, of inventing lies because of her own struggles. His words cut deep, and the humiliation burned in Grace's chest. She wanted to scream that she was telling the truth, that she wanted nothing but to save him. But all she could do was whisper one last time, "You will see the truth one day, and when you do, remember I warned you." Michael dismissed her, his heart shielded by the illusion Samantha had cast. He turned back to his celebrations, ignoring the sting of Grace's warning. Samantha arrived moments later, dazzling in her beauty, and the crowd admired her every move. She clung to Michael's arm, her smile bright enough to blind. For a moment, Michael forgot the heaviness of Grace's words, convincing himself it was nonsense, the bitterness of a servant who did not understand love. But doubts are seeds. They are planted quietly and grow slowly, silently, until their roots wrap around the heart. As the days passed, Michael began to notice things he had ignored before. Samantha always avoided talking about her family, quickly changing the subject whenever he asked. She insisted on having credit cards in her name, arguing it was a sign of trust. She grew irritated when he mentioned a prenuptial agreement, claiming his love should not require contracts. These moments made Michael pause, but every time he questioned himself, Samantha's charm pulled him back in. She knew exactly how to smile, how to cry, how to twist words until he felt guilty for doubting her. Michael's best friend tried to warn him, too. "Are you sure about her? Something doesn't feel right," he asked one evening. But Michael, blinded by devotion, defended her with passion. He reminded his friend of her beauty, her kindness, her support during his stressful workdays. To him, she was perfect. To everyone else, there was a shadow in her perfection. The wedding was only weeks away, and preparations filled every corner of Michael's life. Samantha demanded lavish decorations, expensive jewelry, and endless indulgences. Michael provided them without hesitation, believing love was proven through giving. He bought her diamond necklaces, designer dresses, and even agreed to put one of his penthouses in her name. She showered him with gratitude, kissing his cheek, whispering promises of forever. Yet her eyes, when she thought he wasn't watching, carried an emptiness that unsettled him. Grace's absence weighed on him more than he admitted. The house felt quieter without her. She had been more than a maid, she had been part of the home. Michael thought of her sometimes at night, remembering the conviction in her trembling voice. Her words replayed in his mind like an echo, "Don't marry her, she is a scammer." He dismissed it, telling himself he was imagining things, but unease began to creep into his heart. Then came the night that changed everything. Michael returned home earlier than usual, his footsteps quiet as he walked through the grand halls. From the study, he heard Samantha's voice, soft but sharp. He froze, listening. "Yes, darling," she whispered into her phone. "Don't worry. Once I marry him, the money is ours. Then we can disappear forever. He's so blind, he'll never suspect a thing." Michael's chest tightened, his breath shallow. The words pierced him like knives, shattering the illusion he had clung to. He felt the ground slip beneath him, his heart pounding with rage and betrayal. His fiancée, the woman he believed was his partner in love, was nothing but a predator waiting to strike. That he stepped back quietly, his hands trembling, his mind racing. Images of Grace's tearful warning flooded his memory, each word now burning with truth. The shame of not believing her crushed him, but it was drowned by the fury of Samantha's deceit. His love, his trust, his dreams of a future, nothing more than bait for her greed. That night, Michael did not sleep. He sat in silence, staring at the engagement ring he had given Samantha, the symbol of a promise now turned into a weapon against him. His chest ached, but his mind was cold and calculating. He knew he had to act, but how? Should he confront her? Should he end it quietly? Or should he expose her for what she truly was? His heart bled, yet beneath the pain, something else began to rise: resolve. The world saw him as a man of fortune, but Samantha had forgotten he was also a man of power. She thought she had fooled him forever, but her game was about to end. Michael rose at dawn, his eyes hollow but determined. The world believed a wedding was about to happen, but what would unfold instead would shock everyone. He had fallen for a scammer's spell, but the moment of truth had arrived, and the reckoning was near. Michael's world had collapsed in silence the night he overheard Samantha's words. His chest carried a weight heavier than any business failure or financial loss he had ever endured. This was not about money, it was about trust, about the heart he had opened so willingly, only to find it pierced by betrayal. Rage boiled within him, yet it was not wild or reckless. It was cold, steady, deliberate. He had been blinded, but not broken. If Samantha thought she would walk away with his fortune, she was about to face a truth she could never imagine. That he decided not to confront her immediately. Instead, he reached out to an old friend who specialized in uncovering the secrets people tried to bury. A private investigator was hired, discreet and efficient, tasked with digging into Samantha's past. Michael waited, though every second felt like an eternity. The mansion was filled with her laughter and demands, yet now every word she spoke felt like venom. He pretended to smile, pretended to love, but in his eyes, suspicion had replaced devotion. The investigation took only days, but the revelations felt like a lifetime of betrayal compressed into a folder of evidence. Samantha was no stranger to deceit. She had been engaged 3 times before, each time walking away with assets, jewelry, or money from wealthy men. She carried different names in different places, moving like a shadow across cities. And most damning of all, the investigator provided photographs of her with the man she called "darling" on the phone. They were seen together in hotels, exchanging envelopes of cash, laughing in each other's arms while Michael believed she was away shopping or visiting friends. Michael stared at the photographs for hours. Every smile she had given him now seemed rehearsed. Every tear she shed in his arms looked manufactured. The reality was undeniable, and yet it cut so deeply he felt as if he was drowning. He had given her not just gifts and money but trust, respect, and dreams of a shared future. She had given him nothing but lies, but he was not a man to crumble. Samantha wanted to play games, he would end the game in a way she could never recover from. He decided her unmasking would not happen behind closed doors but before the very world she sought to impress. The wedding day arrived, lavish and grand, attended by business partners, celebrities, politicians, and distant relatives. The venue glittered with wealth, every corner adorned with flowers, crystal, and music. Samantha basked in the attention, her smile radiant, her eyes glimmering with the arrogance of someone convinced she had won. She walked proudly, greeting guests who praised her beauty and elegance, unaware that every step brought her closer to her downfall. Michael played his part to perfection. He looked calm, elegant in his suit, every bit the doting groom. He held Samantha's hand, gazed at her with eyes that pretended love, and allowed her to believe the act. His heart was stone, but his performance flawless. The ceremony began, voices hushed, eyes watching the couple at the altar. Samantha's smile widened as the vows approached, her mind racing with images of bank accounts, properties, and the luxury-filled life she would share with her secret lover once Michael was out of the way. She thought she had won, that the poor maid's warning had been crushed under the weight of her charm, but then Michael raised his hand, stopping the officiant. The hall grew silent. He looked at Samantha, then at the crowd, and his voice, steady and clear, echoed through the room. "Before we take these vows, there is something everyone here must know." Whispers spread among the guests, their eyes darting between the groom and bride. Samantha's smile faltered for the first time, confusion flickering across her face. Michael signaled, and suddenly, speakers filled the hall with a recording. Samantha's voice poured out for everyone to hear, "Don't worry, darling. Once I marry him, the money is ours. Then we can disappear forever." The crowd gasped in unison. Shock, disbelief, and disgust rippled through the room. Samantha's face drained of color, her body frozen as her own betrayal betrayed her. Michael continued, his voice unwavering, recounting the evidence of her past cons, the photographs of her secret lover, the lies she had spun across cities. Each word was a dagger, each piece of proof a chain pulling her down before the very society she wanted to dazzle. The audience that had once admired her now recoiled in shame and anger. Phones recorded, whispers turned to judgment, and Samantha's desperate eyes darted around the room, searching for escape. She stammered, tried to explain, but her words were drowned by the murmurs of betrayal. Michael handed the final blow by revealing the police were already informed. Uniformed officers entered, their presence sealing her fate. Samantha's cries filled the hall as she was taken away, her carefully constructed mask shattered, her dignity stripped before the world. Her secret lover, caught in the net as well, was arrested outside. The wedding that was meant to be her triumph became her ruin. Michael stood tall, not with joy but with solemn relief. He had been fooled, yes, but not defeated. He had learned the cost of blindness, and in his heart, one face lingered more than Samantha's downfall, Grace, the maid he had cast aside. In the days that followed, Michael found no peace. The applause of those who congratulated him for exposing Samantha meant little. His wealth felt hollow. He could not erase the memory of Grace's trembling voice, her warning he had so cruelly ignored. The shame of firing her haunted him more than Samantha's betrayal. He knew he had to find her, to make right what he had broken. He searched until he discovered her in a small village far from the city. She worked tirelessly, cleaning houses, caring for children, struggling to survive. When Michael arrived, she looked at him with wide, startled eyes, unsure whether to trust the man who had once humiliated her. He approached her not as a millionaire but as a man humbled. His voice broke as he apologized, admitting his blindness, his arrogance, his failure to believe her when she was the only one brave enough to speak the truth. Grace listened quietly, her heart heavy, her silence more powerful than any words. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I warned you because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected thanks." Her forgiveness was not immediate, but her kindness could not be hidden. She saw his sincerity, the pain in his eyes, and the truth in his voice. She accepted his apology, though not with grand gestures, only with the quiet grace that had always defined her. Michael insisted on helping her, not out of pity but out of respect. He offered her a chance to manage projects he planned to fund in her village, schools for children, healthcare for families, opportunities for those who struggled as she had. Grace hesitated, but eventually agreed, realizing his intentions were no longer clouded by arrogance. Together, they worked side by side. Michael saw in Grace a strength he had never noticed before. She was not educated in the ways of wealth, but her wisdom was greater than money could buy. She cared for people, understood their struggles, and guided him to use his fortune for good. Over time, admiration turned to trust, and trust blossomed into something deeper. Michael found in Grace not the glamour that once blinded him, but the sincerity that healed him. She had no masks, no greed, no false promises. She offered only honesty, and that was worth more than diamonds. The man who once believed love was measured in luxury learned that love was measured in truth. He no longer saw himself as a rescuer, but as someone rescued, from deceit, from arrogance, from loneliness. Grace did not just save him from a scammer, she saved him from himself. Years later, the community they built together thrived. Children laughed in schools, families found hope in new opportunities, and the village shined with progress. Michael walked among them, no longer just the millionaire, but a man transformed. And beside him, Grace walked not as a maid, but as a partner, her head held high, her heart finally seen. Michael often thought back to that day when she whispered the words that changed his life. "Don't marry her, she is a scammer." He realized those words were not just a warning about Samantha, they were a test of his own ability to listen, to see beyond appearances, to value truth over beauty. He had failed at first, but